El Paso's noon burned like an inferno. Dry winds swept through the bus station, kicking up clouds of dust. Passengers waited silently under a weathered shelter, sunlight casting slanted streaks of fire across the ground. A dog's bark erupted suddenly, fierce and relentless. A woman, 8 months pregnant, froze in place. Her hands clutched her belly, eyes wide with panic. She stumbled backward, her back pressing against a metal pole, her entire body trembling. Duke, a sleek, black German shepherd, tall and imposing, growled, lunging forward. His body was taut as a bowstring. His eyes never left her. Jake Torres gripped the leash tightly, his gaze sharp as a blade. Standing beside Duke, his face was tense. In El Paso, where anyone could be a drug smuggler in disguise, Duke was his second pair of eyes. And those eyes never missed. The woman tried to stay calm, but her hands shook violently. She stammered, I didn't do anything." The air around them began to stir with whispers. A young man muttered to his friend, "Bet she's hiding drugs in her belly. Old trick, still works." A woman whispered, "Even pregnant, they don't spare." Jake's eyes flicked to the murmuring crowd, then back to Duke. The dog was still snarling low, its throat rumbling. "Duke," Jake said softly, "you sure about this?" Duke didn't react. His gaze stayed locked on the woman, tail rigid. The woman's breathing grew ragged. She raised a hand to shield her belly, her voice breaking. "Please, keep the dog away. I don't have anything." Jake frowned. She didn't show the signs of a liar, but Duke never reacted wrongly. Both couldn't be true. One of them was hiding something. He didn't take his eyes off her. "What do you smell, Duke?" he whispered. Duke let out a short growl. The passengers edged farther back. The woman sank onto a nearby bench, sweat beading on her forehead. A single drop slid down her chin, trembling with her shaking body. Jake's heart pounded. He tightened his grip on the leash instinctively. Dust swirled up with another gust of wind. Someone's hat blew off, tumbling across the concrete. Everyone stood still. Jake crouched down, leaning close to Duke. "Easy, boy. We'll handle this right." Duke stepped back half a pace but kept growling. The woman stammered, "I'm just waiting for my bus. I don't deal drugs. I just—" Jake cut her off with a look. Not angry, not cold, but intensely focused. His instincts screamed this wasn't an ordinary smuggling case. He muttered almost inaudibly, "Something isn't right." A battered SUV screeched to a stop. The door flung open, and a woman stepped out, hair tied high, camera in hand. Lisa Hayes, a reporter for the local news channel, had just gotten a tip about a suspicious incident involving a police dog at the El Paso bus station. "Dog barking? In a crowd? Pregnant woman?" she muttered. "This is definitely juicy." She switched on her camera, panning quickly to the gathered crowd. Inside the scene, Duke was still barking in sharp bursts, his growls tearing through the air. Lisa frowned. She zoomed in. The pregnant woman sat hunched on a bench, clutching her belly. Fear was etched on her face. Beside her stood an officer, Jake, holding the leash and whispering something to the dog. Lisa turned to her assistant. "Get a good shot of the dog. Barking like that means it sniffed something on her." Jake caught sight of the camera. His face hardened instantly. He stepped forward, blocking the lens. "Stop! This isn't the place to film." Lisa held her ground, smirking faintly. "It's a public space, and the public has a right to know." "You're making things messier," Jake shot back, his eyes flicking to the woman, whose condition seemed to be worsening. Duke's barks grew sharper, more aggressive. The woman's breathing quickened, her hands gripping her belly as she shook her head repeatedly. Lisa lowered the camera slightly but kept her eyes locked on the scene. "Maybe she swallowed drugs, hiding them inside her," she whispered to her assistant. "Or worse, stashing them in her womb. You heard about that?" Jake signaled another officer. He spoke quickly, loud enough for Lisa to catch. "Get her checked now. Call the inspection team." The woman shook her head frantically. "I didn't do anything. I just want to visit my mom." Duke let out a deeper growl, almost a howl. Lisa swung the camera to follow as two officers approached the woman. All right, she said. We've got a killer opening for tonight's news. Jake spun around, his voice ice cold. You won't air anything if you keep obstructing the inspection. Lisa stepped back but kept the camera rolling. In the lens, Duke yanked at the leash, lunging toward the woman as if ready to pounce. Jake held him back, but his eyes betrayed a flicker of worry. The woman bowed her head, whispering almost inaudibly, Please, I can't take this anymore. The isolation room sat at the end of the bus station's hallway, its fluorescent lights casting a cold glow on the gray concrete floor. The air was thick with the stench of exhaust, sweat, and dust. Two officers closed in on the woman. Jake stepped closer, gesturing. Call Kelly, female inspection. A female officer appeared minutes later, dressed in a black uniform, hair neatly tied back. Her face was stern. What's going on? She asked briskly. Jake pointed to the woman slumped on the floor, hands cradling her belly. Duke was still growling at the isolation room's entrance, though held back outside. Afraid she's hiding something inside her, Jake said. We might need an internal scan if it comes to that. Officer Kelly nodded. She turned to a male officer nearby. You stay outside. I'll handle things in here. The male officer grinned, nudging his partner. Another hot shipment case. If it's real, we're scoring big points. Kelly shot him a sideways glance but said nothing. Inside, the woman was gasping for air, her eyes frantic. I'm begging you. I haven't done anything wrong. I'm just visiting my mom. Kelly helped her up, her voice gentle. We need to check you. It's just procedure. Cooperate, and it'll be over quickly. The woman shook her head, tears streaming down her cheeks. Jake stood outside, his eyes fixed on Duke. The dog was clawing at the metal door as if trying to tear it down. It's never been like this, Jake muttered. Lisa appeared at the far end of the hallway, still holding her camera, but staying silent this time. She sensed the situation was graver than she'd thought. Inside, Kelly swiftly checked the woman's purse, phone, and documents. Nothing suspicious. Now I need to check your condition, Kelly said. If needed, we'll move to the medical room. The woman's head dropped. I'm 8 months pregnant. I haven't swallowed anything. I'm not even ready to give birth. We're just following protocol, Kelly replied, but her hand was already on her radio. Medical, prep for possible labor support. Outside, the male officer glanced at Jake. If we find drugs, this'll be huge news. Heard last time someone hid stuff right in their womb. Fooled even the scanners. Jake didn't respond. He narrowed his eyes at Duke, a chill creeping down his spine. Inside, the woman began to curl inward, her hands gripping her shirt tightly. A sharp gasp escaped her. No, it's not drugs. I feel something's wrong. Duke let out a long howl at the door. Lisa shivered. She whispered, This might not be a sensational story, but something else entirely. The metal door clanged shut behind Kelly. Inside the inspection room, cold white light illuminated every trace of tension on the woman's face. Bare concrete walls, a metal table, a simple plastic chair. She sat down, hands still resting on her belly in a protective instinct. Kelly began inspecting her luggage, documents, then rifled through every compartment of her purse. Nothing suspicious. How long have you been pregnant? Kelly asked. 8 months, she answered, her breathing shallow. I'm not hiding anything. Outside, Duke whined. The dog had stopped growling fiercely and now let out long, rhythmic whimpers. It paced in circles by the door, occasionally rearing up to claw at the icy steel. Jake stood nearby, watching Duke's behavior closely. It's not like when he smells drugs, he muttered. He's worried. Lisa was close by, no longer filming. She glanced at Duke, then at Jake, curious. He's acting different, right? Like he's sensing something. Jake didn't answer, just nodded slightly. Duke's whining grew more urgent. He crouched low, ears pinned back, eyes glued to the door, body rigid. Jake froze. Hold on. He knelt, placing a hand on Duke's back, leaning close to the dog's face. You're not smelling drugs, are you? Duke let out a soft whine, almost a sigh. Jake looked up, his expression shifting. He pounded on the inspection room door. Kelly, check her pregnancy status now. Something's wrong. Inside, Kelly had finished searching the bag and stepped closer to the woman. Your belly feels unusually tight. Any pain? The woman pressed her lips together, then nodded sharply. Yes, like knives. And I think my water. She didn't finish. A contraction doubled her over, her hands clutching the table's edge. Kelly flinched, grabbing her radio. Medical emergency. Signs of preterm labor. Get the team here. Jake pushed the door open at that moment, Duke right behind him. The woman looked up at Duke. Her eyes were wet, her lips trembling. He knew. He knew before I did. Jake nodded softly, whispering. He wasn't barking at drugs. He was barking at danger. Duke stepped closer, standing by her side, no longer barking, only whining softly. He looked up at Jake as if awaiting a command. Lisa turned to her assistant. Turn off the camera. This isn't news anymore. Kelly gripped the woman's shoulders, her voice urgent. Try to breathe deeply. Medicine's almost here. Outside, the faint wail of an ambulance grew louder. Jake whispered to Duke, Good boy. This time, you're saving a life. The air in the inspection room felt heavy as lead. The distant wail of an ambulance echoed closer. The woman sat hunched in her chair, hands clutching her belly, her shirt soaked with sweat. Kelly knelt before her, gently placing a hand on her knee. Breathe evenly. Deep inhales. The woman nodded faintly, but seconds later, her body convulsed sharply. Ah! She screamed, her hands gripping the table's edge, her face contorted in agony. Jake shot to his feet, his voice commanding. Get the medics now! She's having complications! The pain didn't relent. The woman slid off the chair, collapsing to the floor, her back slamming against the cold wall. I'm not giving birth. It's too early. Kelly caught her, panic flashing in her eyes. This isn't labor, she muttered. It's something else. Sweat poured down the woman's forehead. Her skin was ghostly pale. Her eyes darted to Duke, the dog standing rigid beside Jake, ears perked high, his entire body trembling as if sensing something profoundly wrong. Duke didn't howl or whine. He stood frozen, then tilted his head skyward, and let out a long, piercing howl that echoed off the cold cement walls. Everyone in the room went silent. Lisa, still lingering by the doorway, lowered her camera. This was no longer a story to report. It was something raw, human, and fragile. Jake knelt beside the woman, resting a hand on her shoulder. Can you hear me? What's your name? Valeria, she whispered, her voice barely audible. I can't see. It's so cold. Jake locked eyes with Kelly. No words were needed. We're losing her, Kelly said quickly. It's not amniotic fluid. It could be internal bleeding. Jake grabbed his radio. El Paso station to medics. Emergency. Possible arterial rupture. We need a stretcher and doctors now. Duke howled again, longer this time, as if summoning help. Lisa covered her mouth, tears welling up. She turned to her assistant. Not a headline. This is life and death. Valeria curled up on the floor, murmuring as if in a trance. I just wanted to visit my mom. I didn't think I was going to die. Jake took her hand, squeezing gently. No one's letting you die. You'll be okay. The door burst open. A nurse rushed in with 2 medics, pulling a stretcher loaded with monitors and emergency gear. Jake stepped back, but his eyes stayed on Valeria. Duke moved to her side, lowering his head to lick her cold hand gently. A long beep sounded from the heart monitor. Jake's blood ran cold. The ambulance siren cut off as the inspection room door flew open. 2 medics rushed in, followed by a nurse hauling a metal stretcher equipped with an IV drip, monitors, and a trauma kit. Clear the way, the nurse shouted. Jake and Kelly stepped back instantly. Valeria, the young woman, lay crumpled on the floor, her face ashen, sweat soaking her clothes. Weak pulse, dropping blood pressure, a medic said rapidly after checking her wrist. Doesn't look like labor. Possible uterine artery rupture. Valeria shook her head faintly, her voice a whisper. It's not time yet. Too early. Duke whimpered beside the stretcher, his eyes fixed on her. He sniffed repeatedly around her body, then looked up at Jake. It wasn't his trained response. It was raw unease. Jake placed a hand on Duke's head, murmuring, "You've done your part, boy. Let them take it from here." Lisa stood in the corner, her eyes red. She'd turned off her camera long ago, no longer thinking of news, just watching silently. "Uterine artery rupture?" she whispered to Kelly. "How bad is that?" "If they don't act fast, both mother and baby could be lost," Kelly replied, her voice heavy. A nurse fitted an oxygen mask over Valeria's face, while another strapped a brace around her lower abdomen to stabilize the injury. Valeria moaned softly as they lifted her onto the stretcher. "I don't want to die. Please," she said weakly. "No one's letting you die," Jake said, walking beside the stretcher. "You'll be at the hospital in minutes." Duke stayed close, like a loyal guard. His eyes never left Valeria's pale face. The bus station hallway turned chaotic. People parted to either side. Some raised phones to record. Others covered their mouths in shock. But no one spoke. All were drawn into the life or death scene. Lisa followed quickly, no longer a reporter chasing a scoop. Her hands were empty of the camera, just her eyes tracking a story she no longer wanted to broadcast. "Not a hot story. It's a miracle," she said softly. As the stretcher rolled through the exit, Jake turned to Kelly. "Thank you. If we hadn't checked her fast, she might have—" Kelly shook her head, her gaze on Valeria, who was fading. The medics loaded the stretcher into the waiting ambulance. One shouted, "We need surgery now. Prep the OR as soon as we hit the hospital." Jake stepped forward but could only go as far as the door. Duke stopped at the ambulance's step, looking back at him. Lisa stood behind, watching them both. "You knew it all along, didn't you, Duke?" Jake whispered. Duke gave a faint wag of his tail, then turned back, staying by Valeria's side. The ambulance doors slammed shut. The siren blared, echoing across the El Paso station. Jake stood rooted, his eyes following the flashing red and blue lights as they faded into the distance. Valeria lay motionless on the stretcher, an oxygen mask covering half her face. Her pulse was faint, her skin ghostly pale, her belly rigid. The nurse checked her vitals frantically, shouting into the radio, "Confirmed uterine artery rupture. Prep the OR immediately." The ambulance rattled as it swerved sharply. The bus station faded into the distance, leaving only scorching sunlight and endless dusty roads ahead. Jake sat inside, his eyes glued to Valeria. He'd never felt time crawl so agonizingly. Each second seemed to press deeper into his chest. Duke lay pressed against the floor, his head resting near Valeria's feet. He didn't howl or whimper, just watched her shallow breaths. At times, he lifted his head slightly, as if checking on her, then nestled closer. Another contraction jolted Valeria upright, her face twisting in pain. The nurse grabbed her hand, soothing. "We're almost there. Hold on. You've got to stay conscious." Save my baby first. Please." Valeria's voice broke, barely audible. Jake gripped the handrail tightly. He glanced at Duke, thinking, "You didn't smell drugs. You smelled death creeping closer, and you stopped it." The ambulance screeched to a halt at an intersection as a pickup truck ran a red light. Everything lurched. An IV tube slipped from its hook. The nurse caught it just in time. 3 minutes out," the driver shouted. "Prep for a fast transfer." Lisa tailed the ambulance in her news SUV. Her camera lay untouched on the passenger seat. Only one thought consumed her. Don't let them die. Don't let that happen. She pulled up behind the ambulance at the hospital. A surgical team in scrubs was already waiting at the entrance. The doors flew open. Jake leapt out first, helping guide the stretcher with the medics. Duke raced behind but was stopped at the entrance. "No animals in the OR," a doctor barked. Jake held Duke back, but the dog didn't growl or bark, just watched as Valeria was wheeled away, his eyes filled with an unease like that of a loved one left behind. The nurse shouted to the doctor, "She's losing blood fast. She's unconscious." Another medic ran alongside, administering fluids and pressing lightly on Valeria's chest in rhythmic compressions. Lisa rushed up to Jake. How did the dog know? From the start, he never took his eyes off her." Jake answered without turning. "He didn't smell danger. He felt it. Duke kept watching until the OR doors swung shut. No one spoke. Only the hum of machines echoed faintly down the sunlit white hallway. Jake crouched, placing a hand on Duke's head. She's still alive. You bought her those precious minutes. The El Paso hospital hallway was stark white, cold and so silent that the ticking of a wall clock echoed with each second. The faint smell of antiseptic mingled with the thick, heavy quiet of anticipation. Jake sat on a plastic chair against the wall. His uniform was streaked with road dust, his hands still faintly stained with Valeria's blood. His fingers rested on Duke's head, stroking slowly in rhythm. Duke lay at his feet, head on Jake's boots, ears perked, eyes fixed on the OR doors. No one spoke. Lisa approached, her camera gone. She sat down quietly beside Jake, leaving a small but not distant gap. In her hands was a plastic coffee cup, steam rising faintly. I can't drink it, she said, forcing a weak smile. Just holding it to warm my hands. Jake didn't respond. His eyes stayed on the doors, as if afraid they'd open with bad news. That dog, Lisa tilted her head toward Duke. He never left her side for a second, like he knew everything before it happened. Jake gave a slight nod. After a pause, he spoke. Duke saved 3 people in bus before, but this was different. He didn't sense danger, he sensed pain. Lisa sighed, leaning back against the wall. I came thinking this was a hot scoop, a shocking drug smuggling bust. I'd already drafted the most clickbait headline. Jake's lips twitched. Half a smile, half a sigh. You're not the only one who thought that. Duke stirred faintly. He turned his head toward the doors, one ear twitching. Then he let out a soft, barely audible whine. Jake sat up straight, his hand tightening on the leash draped over his knee. Lisa glanced at him. Something up? Jake didn't answer. He watched Duke. The dog's eyes were locked on the doors, as if something inside had just shifted. Time dragged like silent torture. No one passed by, no sound of footsteps or doctors, just the hum of the air conditioner and the faint buzz of fluorescent lights overhead. Jake whispered, if he whines like that, it might be a good sign. Lisa looked at Duke, then at Jake. For the first time, her gaze held no skepticism, no analysis, just hope. Duke lay still, his head inching closer to the doors. Then the OR doors gave a faint shudder, not opening, just a slight tremor. Jake's grip tightened, his mind racing. Here it is, the moment of truth. The OR doors swung open. A doctor stepped out, still in blood-streaked scrubs, his mask pulled down to his chin. Sweat glistened on his forehead. Jake and Lisa stood in unison, Duke springing up, ears perked, eyes locked on him. The doctor gave a tired but genuine smile. Mother and baby are stable. Uterine artery rupture. We had to perform emergency surgery, but we got there in time. A few minutes later, we wouldn't have saved them. Jake's hands dropped, his eyes lighting up. Lisa exhaled as if pulled from underwater after holding her breath too long. The doctor stepped closer to Jake. You're Officer Torres, right? The one who brought her in? Jake nodded. Not me, he said. Him. He crouched, placing a hand on Duke's head. The doctor looked at Duke for a moment, then shook his head in disbelief. We found no drugs, no signs of smuggling, but clearly, if it wasn't for his reaction, we wouldn't have checked her in time. Lisa asked softly, did she say anything before she passed out? The doctor reached into his pocket, pulling out a small, neatly folded piece of paper. She scribbled this while waiting for anesthesia. Said it was for the one who saved me. I think it's for you. Jake unfolded it. The handwriting was shaky, ink smudged with tears or blood. Thank you for your dog. He's my angel. Jake froze. His fingers tightened around the paper, holding it like something sacred. Lisa leaned down, gently petting Duke's head. A hero doesn't need a cape, just loyalty and never walking away. Duke let out a soft whine, almost in agreement. Lisa looked at Jake, smiling. I'm going to write this story, but not the old way. Jake raised an eyebrow. No reporter uncovers border drug bust? Lisa shook her head. Its dog saves mother and child from death's grip. That's the truth, and it deserves to be told. The three stood in the hospital hallway, bathed in the soft golden light of late afternoon. The tension faded, giving way to a quiet, human relief. Jake rubbed Duke's head. You're more than just a police dog. The next morning, El Paso's sun shone bright but gentler. It wasn't the searing heat of the day Jake first met Valeria, but a new day, soft, clear, and brimming with hope. Jake sat on a stone bench outside the hospital courtyard. Beside him was Duke, head resting on his leg as always. Lisa approached, holding a fresh morning paper. The bold headline read, "Dog Saves 2 Lives, a story from the El Paso border." She handed it to Jake. For once, I didn't need to hype it up. No clickbait, no dramatization. The story was powerful enough on its own. Jake skimmed a few lines, pausing at a photo. Duke lay close to the stretcher, eyes tracking Valeria, a moment Lisa had captured, not for news, but because it touched something deep inside her. Is she awake? Jake asked. Lisa nodded. The nurse said she's weak but conscious. The baby's healthy. A boy. She said she's giving him Duke as a middle name. Jake looked down at Duke, his voice rough. You're famous now, buddy. Duke gave a soft whine and a single tail wag, unbothered by fame, as always. A nurse approached, handing Jake a small folded note. Valeria asked me to give you this. She's too weak to come out, but wanted you to read it. Jake opened it. I was terrified of his eyes once. Now I only hope to see him again to say thank you. Thank you, Duke, my son's savior. Lisa read it too. She stayed silent for a long moment, then turned to Jake. You'll keep being a cop, and I'll keep being a reporter. But from now on, I'm choosing a different way to tell stories. Jake smiled faintly. Not for justice, but for people? Both, Lisa replied, and for a dog who feels life better than we do. Duke stretched out, eyes half closed in the sunlight. Jake said softly as if to the air, You're not just a dog, you're a friend. 2 years later, El Paso still burned under relentless sun, dust swirling through the same weathered bus stations. The station hadn't changed much. The same peeling brick walls, cold stone benches, and transient passengers carrying stories no one would ever know. Jake sat on the familiar bench, a black coffee in hand. Duke, now with a few white hairs speckling his muzzle, lay relaxed at his feet, eyes half shut but ears still alert, as if he never fully let his guard down. A silver SUV pulled up across the street. The door opened and a boy, nearly 2 years old, was lifted out. Soft, curly hair, bright, curious eyes. Behind him stepped a young woman, slender but radiating vitality. Valeria. She was healthier now, her face fuller and glowing, worlds apart from the frail, terrified figure from years ago. Jake stood as he recognized her. Duke rose instinctively, then paused as if waiting for confirmation. Valeria approached, carrying the boy, a small paper bag with a red ribbon in her other hand. Hey, Jake. And, hey, my hero, she said, smiling down at Duke. Duke stepped forward, gently nuzzling her leg. The boy flinched at first, then giggled, reaching to tap Duke's nose. This is Diego, Valeria introduced. And as promised, his middle name is Duke. Jake's eyes softened, emotion clear in every gesture. Valeria sat beside Duke, opening the bag. A little gift for the most special dog in the world. Inside was a premium bone, a shiny new ball, and a collar engraved with Duke, Guardian of Life, 2023. Lisa arrived minutes later, surprised and touched by the reunion. This story deserves another telling, she said, turning to Valeria, but not as a rescue, as a life going on. Valeria looked at Jake, her eyes glistening. I thought I'd never shake the fear of almost dying, but I forgot, in that moment, a dog stood between me and death. Jake crouched, rubbing Duke's head. You'll never know how many lives you've changed, will you? Duke's tail wagged, his eyes bright. Diego toddled around him, laughing loudly. This dog didn't just save lives, Valeria said. He connected people. Jake nodded. El Paso's harsh, but that day, This place gave birth to a miracle. Lisa pulled out her phone, snapping a photo. Duke sitting between Valeria and little Diego Duke, the afternoon sun filtering through like a soft golden veil. A new picture, a new beginning.